In today's episode, we're going to talk about symptoms. This is important to know because it may help you or even others, so that we can all feel safe, supported, and happy. So what are the different types of symptoms? Today we're going to go over physical symptoms and emotional and behavioral symptoms. So let's get started with physical symptoms. Physical symptoms can include, but are not limited to, sleep deprivation, irregular menstrual cycle, noticeable fluctuations in weight up or down, brittle hairs or nails, and dizziness and fainting. Physical symptoms for anorexia include dramatic weight loss, rigid exercise regimens, intense fear of gaining weight, denial of loss of weight, and isolation. Physical symptoms of bulimia include binging food, purging food, which can mean frequent bathroom trips and overexercise, food rituals, lack of the ability to stop eating, hiding food, and being uncomfortable eating around others. Physical symptoms for binge eating disorder include binging, no purging, food rituals, lack of the ability to stop eating, hoarding food, and uncomfortable eating around others. Now we're going to move on to emotional and behavioral symptoms. Common emotional and behavioral symptoms for all eating disorders include refusing to eat, having distorted self-image, hiding under clothing, eating in secret, having mood swings, having a fear of eating in public, and participating in unhealthy exercise regimens. Other emotional and behavioral symptoms include participating in fad diets, having little concern over dramatic weight loss, appearing socially withdrawn, and disappearing directly after eating. Now we're going to talk about approaching another person about these symptoms. Please remember that this can be very sensitive. It's really important that you know how to approach someone in the right way. So what are the different ways to do this? Here are some ways to help if they aren't open. Educate yourself, which you're doing right now. Talk to an adult about the situation. Talk to them during meals. And overall, just be a good friend. Ways to address if they are open about their situation. Educate yourself. This is still extremely important. So is talking to an adult. Try to validate their feelings and empathize. Ask what you can do to help. Tell versus encourage. This is extremely important. Instead of telling a person to go get help, which can be ineffective, encourage them as a friend to seek out resources. When doing this, do not be overly forceful. When talking to a person who struggles with an eating disorder or another mental health condition, it's important to set boundaries. Know what you aren't comfortable talking about. This is important because you don't want to take on their feelings as your own. We will talk about setting comfortable boundaries later. Here are some other important tips. It's important to support your own mental health when helping others. Don't internalize other people's feelings. Talk to an adult. And if you're uncomfortable talking to someone about their feelings, speak up. That person is not your responsibility. You're there as a friend, not as a therapist. These tips will help you keep a healthy friendship. Today's interview is with Gartna Javabda.
Okay, so my name is Kirtna Tarevta, and I suffered with eating disorders since I was in elementary school.
Wow.
And so I was really young. I was probably about in 4th or 5th grade whenever it started. And it lasted very, very long time. And like when I was growing up, mental health was like not even something that we talk about.
Yeah.
And so I started, I think it was around 4th grade, is like I started to feel like uncomfortable in my body. And so I was in our culture, I was an Indian girl who was curvy. I was naturally curvy. I was naturally chubbier. And then whereas like all my family members, they were lanky. They were skinny and they were lanky. So I felt different in my body. And so I was like, how do I not gain weight? And so it was more about, I stopped eating, or in the morning I would eat breakfast and I would throw up. During lunch I wouldn't eat. Same thing with dinner, like I would struggle just eating. And so I didn't realize how malnourished I was. And so I remember I would make my lunch and then I would throw it away during elementary school, all throughout middle school. Sometimes in middle school I would eat like chips, thinking that was like the cool thing. But that was like, out of your whole day, eating a bag of chips is not sustainable or nutritious. And then in high school, same thing happened. Is like I would mix and mingle with everybody, but I would never eat my meals.
Yeah.
And so, and I just remember I was so shy about eating in front of people. And then finally got to college, and I would have to talk to myself. I'm like, just eat. Just struggling was more of that body positivity. Like, we didn't have that when I was growing up. Nor did we have just awareness. I know my mom struggled with it, and she was like, yeah, I used to not eat, or I used to throw up. But for her, it was normal, saying like it was okay, like this is something we did. And so it was never oh, hey, this is an issue. Like, why are you not eating? Why are you malnourished? And I remember I was so fixated in being a size 0 or even a double 0, because that's what size my sister was. But I didn't realize that we had 2 very different body sizes. And so I struggled for it for a long time. And then I would have to talk to myself, no, I'm prettier, I'm curvy. Curvy is pretty. And then Beyonce started coming out, J-Lo started coming out, and they had the curves. And so I would start appreciating that curviness more. Like, okay, they have curves, I have curves. And I don't want to be this tiny person, because that's not how my body was. My aunt, she's very, she is prejudiced about people who are pretty or not. And at that time when I was young, I wasn't pretty. It was like ugly duckling experience, right? And so I was curvy, like I said, and she would always make comments about me being thick. I would have my family in India saying like, oh, she's gonna be fat when she grows up. She's gonna be fat. And so for them to tell me that I'm gonna be fat, and then they would even tell me, my mom too, is, oh, she's ugly too. And so I was getting hit with, she's ugly, she's curvy and fat, or she's healthy, she's gonna be, you know. And to me, it's like, I don't want to be fat, ugly, you know, growing up. Like, that's not how I imagine myself to be. And so I struggled with that. And especially when you're 9 years old and somebody's telling you that, it's hard. I hit rock bottom. I struggle with the eating disorder, and then just taking care of myself. Like, I was always a fitness enthusiast, and then I also enjoyed food. And so what brought me to the point of where I found a life coach who helped guide me through what I experienced. And then during that time, I was in a toxic relationship. And so during that relationship, I had gained weight, and my boyfriend at that time kept calling me fat. And so it was another, okay, I experienced this when I was young, and then now it's somebody who I love telling me that I was fat. And so it was like, I hit a rock bottom point, because I knew I gained weight, but I honestly believe that, you know, somebody loves you, they should love you no matter what, right? You know, if you gain a little bit of weight, you lose a little bit of weight, the person should love you and support you. So I found a life coach, and so I knew that I could not do it alone. And I knew that, like, what I was facing, like, it was internal. And so I do believe that it is a healing process. And that's one thing that I've healed from, is letting go and not letting other people, like, seek that validation from other people. And loving myself. I think that was my biggest journey, is I didn't love myself for so long. Even though on the outside I was confident, I seemed like I was confident, and I was doing all these things. I sought help, and I had a life coach for about, I want to say 6 years, who she helped me go through just self-love and like loving myself and understanding what self-love is. And especially in middle school too, like, you're growing into your body. And I remember, like, too, is like, I remember this guy, like, and I'll never forget it, but he made fun of my nose. He was like, and I had big old glasses, and that, like, you know, and he was like, oh, your nose is so big. And like, I was growing into my body, you know. And so it's just like things like that you'll remember. And you have, like, I know at one point I was really insecure about my nose. I'm like, oh, you know, I want to get work done, but it makes you think that way. And it's really sad how, if somebody, you know, especially middle schoolers, and I think at that age, I think middle school, in my opinion, is like the toughest of all, because elementary school, you're young and you're still like, you know, you're a kid. Middle school is you're transitioning from a kid to a teenager, really. And I think that stage, and you're hitting puberty, and people are changing, and some people are growing up too quickly. And I think that at that stage, it's like, as you said, the comparison games really end. It's like, well, like, I want to play with Barbies, but my friends are going here and hanging out with guys, you know. And so I think that causes a lot of struggles. It's a lot of people, they won't tell you what's going on inside. They go through pain in silence. And that's something that, you know, unfortunately, I think every single person on this earth will face at one point or another. You know, they on the outside, they're smiling, they look great, they act great, but inside that they're hurting. And it's just so sad.
Now it's time for today's Myth Bust. Today's topic: having an eating disorder is a choice. This simply isn't true. An eating disorder may start out as something as simple as an urge to become healthier. For some people, this can lead to an unhealthy obsession with weight or food, and they can lose control over their eating habits. This affects the body's ability to receive nutrition. This can also be mental health related. Anxiety, depression, OCD, or other mental health disorders may contribute to an eating disorder. Genetics are also important to consider. A person whose family has a history of a specific eating disorder are more likely to have that disorder as well. Body image, social media, and body dysmorphia can also lead to an eating disorder. Having body dysmorphia is not a choice. Comparing ourselves to others is something we do compulsively. Eating disorders are a serious mental health condition that can be fatal. It's important to not take this lightly. Today we talked about physical symptoms and emotional symptoms of different eating disorders. Remember, it's important to be caring and empathetic. Know when to go to an adult, and set boundaries to make sure that you and the person you're trying to help are comfortable.
Created using Powtoon.